2010 PureFlix film Christmas with a capital C. The film is, in essence, a retelling of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. A big city Baldwin lawyer named Mitch comes back to his hometown in Alaska where he meets our hero, the sexy hot Christian boy, Dan. Every year around Christmas time, Dan, the mayor of this town, puts a nativity scene outside City Hall, but Mitch, the filthy urbanite, doesn't like that one bit. He claims that the display violates the Establishment Clause of the Constitution, advocates one religion over another, and is therefore not allowed. The story is then mostly about the legal and personal battle between these two men.
You cannot preach your religion, Dan.
No, but I'm still a citizen. And as a citizen, I have a First Amendment right to express my own beliefs.
But you do not have the right to spend the taxpayers' money to propagate them.
The only money I've spent is to take better care of town property.
Town property, which establishes a religion.
And the thing is, if I wanted to, I could tell you a story about how this movie is actually pretty cool and thoughtful. And let me begin by doing just that. To start off, let's think about this case for a second. The mayor of a town putting a nativity scene outside City Hall. Because the case law surrounding that sort of thing is honestly pretty complicated. In Lynch v. Donnelly, a 1984 Supreme Court case, the court found that a public display containing a nativity scene did not violate the Constitution. It was surrounded by other holiday symbols, a teddy bear, a dancing elephant, a Christmas tree, things that made the display less explicitly religious. And because of this and various other factors, it was found that the display did not constitute a governmental preference for Christianity so much as an enjoyment for Christmas. And Christmas is, after all, a federal holiday. On the other hand, in Allegheny v. ACLU, a 1989 case, a nativity scene in a county courthouse was taken down. The display didn't have any accompanying iconography, and it came with a bit of text, Gloria in excelsis Deo, in English, glory to God in the highest. And as such, it was decided that the display was indisputably religious. We could go on and on here, look at different cases, not just in the Supreme Court, but in state courts around the country. It's a complicated topic, and it's certainly not trivially easy to know when a nativity scene will be found unconstitutional. And to be honest, the subject of this movie is no different. I don't get to have a strong legal opinion on this matter. For one thing, we actually never get to see this completed nativity scene in all its glory, and since these cases are very attentive to specific details, it's hard to make a definitive statement. But more importantly, I'm not a legal scholar in any sense of the word. I've read 3 articles on this topic. Nevertheless, the subject of this movie certainly feels fairly plausible. A nativity scene with no other iconography to accompany it, placed in public land directly in front of City Hall, a symbol of government. I don't know. I personally see this as a fairly plausible case and do not know which way the courts would decide on the display's constitutionality. What I just said there may not sound like such a big deal, but I find it earnestly mind-blowing. See, PureFlix has, for a long time now, been fixated on plots surrounding putting God on trial. Take God's Not Dead, their flagship series, whose every installment centers on this plot. And looking at those films, we can see a clear trajectory toward the absurd and unrealistic. To be sure, they started off ridiculous. The first film is about a philosophy professor who inexplicably forces his students to renounce God before he begins teaching them.
All that I require from each of you is that you fill in the papers I've just given you with 3 little words: God is dead.
Something which has never happened and never will. But from there, it's only gotten worse. The third film is about a legal case where a college wants to steal a church's property via eminent domain because they hate the controversies that Christianity spurs on their campus.
Don't we own this land?
Yes.
So how is this legal?
Eminent domain.
I studied property law a bit in grad school.
Something which is not only impossible, but also unintelligible and downright unhinged. Like, I have no idea how they even came up with the plot. And by the fourth film, which I haven't yet talked about on my channel, they don't even attempt to give their case, like, a reason for existing. In the movie, the state tries to stop Christian parents from homeschooling their kids, and we are never, not once, told why they are doing this, what could possibly grant the government's case legitimacy. And yet here, in Christmas with a capital C, 4 years before God's Not Dead ever came out, what we have is, by comparison, a dang documentary. On some level then, we have to recognize that this movie is earnestly interested in the Establishment Clause, in the relationship between the government and Christianity. It's not really deceiving us or tipping the scale. Interesting. The all-time